Sometimes I still replay that conversation in my head, the one where my stepson, Mark, looked me dead in the eye and accused me of treating my own children like royalty while he was just a tenant in his own home. And honestly, it stung. It really did. But what stings even more is what happened after. Because when he said that, when he threw those words at me with such venom, a switch flipped. A very big, very final switch. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me, honestly, would you have done the same thing? It all started 7 years ago when I met David, Mark's dad. I was a single mom of 2, Liam, who was then 8, and Sophie, 6. David was a widower, his wife having passed away tragically when Mark was just 10. We fell in love quickly, a whirlwind romance, and within a year, we decided to blend our families and get married. I knew it wouldn't be easy, bringing 2 sets of kids together, especially with Mark having lost his mom. I tried my absolute best to be a good stepmother, to make him feel welcome and loved. But it always felt like I was walking on eggshells around him. He was a quiet kid, reserved, and often seemed to resent my presence, or perhaps the presence of my children. David, bless his heart, was always caught in the middle. He tried to mediate, to encourage Mark to open up, but it was like pulling teeth. Mark always had a roof over his head, food on the table, and whatever he needed for school and hobbies. I never denied him anything within reason. I bought him clothes, took him to his soccer practices, helped him with homework when he'd let me. My kids, Liam and Sophie, they adored David. He was a fun, loving stepfather, and they never once made Mark feel like an outsider. In fact, they tried very hard to befriend him, to include him in their games, but Mark usually rebuffed their attempts. He preferred to be in his room, playing video games or listening to music. I understood he was grieving, and I tried to be patient, to give him space. Our house, a modest 4-bedroom, suddenly felt much smaller with 5 of us. Liam and Sophie shared a room, and Mark had his own. David and I also had our room. It was tight, but it worked. Money was always a little tight too, but we managed. David worked hard, and so did I. We prioritized the kids, making sure they had what they needed, and some of what they wanted. Birthdays and Christmases were celebrated with equal enthusiasm for all 3 children. We went on family vacations, nothing extravagant, but fun trips to the beach or national parks. I truly believed we were creating a loving, blended family, albeit one with its own challenges. As the years passed, Mark's resentment seemed to solidify. He became more openly hostile, especially towards Liam and Sophie. Small things at first. He'd scoff at their excitement over new toys, make sarcastic comments about their school achievements, or roll his eyes when they'd tell a story at dinner. I'd try to gently correct him, remind him about respect, but he'd just retreat into himself or snap back with a mumbled retort. David would then step in, and it would usually end with Mark stomping off to his room. It became a pattern. My kids, being younger and more sensitive, started to feel it. They'd ask me why Mark didn't like them, why he was always so mean. It broke my heart to see them hurt, and I'd reassure them that Mark was just going through a difficult phase, that it wasn't personal. But it was personal. For Mark, it felt like his dad had replaced his mom with me, and his life with Liam and Sophie. He saw us as invaders, not family. When Liam turned 15, he started working a part-time job at a local grocery store, saving up for a used car. Sophie, at 13, was a talented artist, constantly drawing and dreaming of art school. They were both good kids, respectful and hardworking. Mark, now 17, had no interest in working. He expected David and me to pay for everything. His phone, his clothes, his entertainment. He barely helped around the house, leaving his dirty dishes in his room, his laundry piled up, and always a mess in the bathroom. When I'd ask him to help, he'd either ignore me or give me attitude, saying he wasn't my child and I couldn't tell him what to do. This was always a point of contention between David and me. David, out of guilt over Mark's mother's death, was very lenient with him. He'd often say, "He's been through a lot, honey. Just let it go." But letting it go meant I was constantly picking up Mark's slack, and it was draining. The tipping point came during the summer of Mark's senior year. Liam had finally saved enough money to buy his used car, a small but reliable sedan. He was ecstatic, and so were we. We threw him a small celebration dinner, just family. Mark was there, sullen as usual, picking at his food. When Liam talked about getting his license, and how excited he was to have his own wheels, Mark piped up, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Must be nice to have everything handed to you on a silver platter. The table went silent. Liam's face fell. I looked at Mark, my patience finally wearing thin. Mark, what is that supposed to mean? I asked, my voice firm. He shrugged, looking at his plate. Nothing. Just that some people get everything, and others get nothing. David tried to intervene. Mark, that's enough. Liam worked hard for that car. But Mark wasn't done. He looked up, his eyes blazing with a bitterness I hadn't seen before. Yeah, he works hard. Just like Sophie works hard at her art. You too, he said, gesturing between David and me. You treat them like royalty. Everything they want they get. New clothes, new phones, trips, even a car. And me? I'm just here. A tenant. You feed me, you give me a bed, but I'm nothing more than a tenant in my own home. The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Liam looked devastated. Sophie started to tear up. David looked shocked, but before he could say anything, I spoke. My voice was calm, eerily so, but there was an edge to it. Tenant, you say, Mark. He nodded, defiant. Yeah, that's exactly what I am. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, trying my absolute best for years, sacrificing, loving, enduring, and all I got in return was resentment and these terrible accusations. And not just against me, but against my innocent children who had done nothing but try to be his friends. Before I tell you what happened next, what I decided to do with those words, with that accusation, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it slide? Would you have tried to reason with him again? Or would you have, like me, reached your breaking point? I took a deep breath, and I looked at Mark. My mind was racing, replaying every slight, every dismissive glance, every time he'd made my children feel unwelcome. The years of trying to bridge the gap, the endless conversations with David about how to handle Mark's behavior, the quiet tears I'd shed when I felt like a failure as a stepmother, it all culminated in that moment. Okay, Mark, I said, my voice still dangerously calm. If you see yourself as a tenant, then that's exactly what you'll be. David started to protest. Honey, don't. But I held up a hand, silencing him. My eyes never left Mark's. Effective immediately. I continued. The rules of this house are changing. Since you feel like a tenant, you will now adhere to the terms of tenancy. Mark looked surprised, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, but still, he maintained his defiant stance. What does that even mean? He scoffed. It means, I explained, that as a tenant you will pay rent. We will establish a fair market value for your room, utilities, and food. You will contribute to household chores commensurate with your share of the living space. You will be responsible for your own laundry, your own mess, and your own transportation. If you want a phone, you will pay for it. If you want clothes, you will buy them. You are 17, almost 18, old enough to be an adult, old enough to understand the responsibilities that come with it. David finally found his voice. This is crazy! He's our son! No! David, I countered, my voice hardening. He just told us he's a tenant. And as a tenant, he will be treated as such. My children, whom he so graciously called royalty, are our children. They contribute to the household, they are respectful, and they don't demand to be treated like guests while giving nothing in return. They are part of this family. Mark, by his own admission, is not. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of tension. David was furious with me at first, but I stood my ground. I explained to him that Mark's words had crossed a line that had been forming for years. I told him that if he didn't support me in this, then our marriage was in serious trouble. He eventually understood, though reluctantly, that something had to change. We sat Mark down, David and I, and laid out the new tenancy agreement. We showed him local apartment rental listings to give him an idea of what rent would be like. We calculated a reasonable amount for his share of utilities and groceries. We explained that he would be expected to get a job to cover these costs. Mark was initially outraged. He yelled, he slammed doors, he called me every name under the sun. He accused us of being unfair, of throwing him out. We calmly explained that we weren't throwing him out. We were simply treating him the way he wanted to be treated. As a tenant, not a son. He begrudgingly started looking for a part-time job, something he had resisted for years. He found a job at a fast food restaurant, and the reality of earning his own money slowly began to sink in. The initial amount we asked for rent was low, just enough to make him feel the pinch, but not so much that it was impossible. We explained that as he got older, the rent would increase, preparing him for real-world expenses. He had to start doing his own laundry, cleaning his own room, and contributing to shared chores. If he didn't, there were consequences: no access to Wi-Fi, no rides from us, no shared meals. He grumbled, but he complied. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was noticeable. The house became quieter, less charged with his unspoken resentment. He still wasn't the warmest, but the open hostility towards Liam and Sophie ceased. He even started to occasionally clear his own plate after dinner without being asked. Slowly, painstakingly, Mark began to understand the value of $1, the effort it takes to maintain a home, and the privilege of being part of a family that provided for him. He started saving his money, realizing that his phone bill wasn't just magically paid. He even started to appreciate the home-cooked meals I made, knowing that if he were truly a tenant, he'd be fending for himself. The true turning point came a few months later. Mark had been working consistently, paying his rent, and helping more around the house. He was still a teenager, so there were still moments of sullenness, but the overall atmosphere was much better. One evening, I walked into the kitchen to find him actually talking to Liam, not just grunting in response, but having a real conversation about school. When Liam left, Mark looked at me, a rare, almost shy expression on his face. "Mom," he said, and my heart actually skipped a beat. He hadn't called me Mom since before David and I got married. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for what I said that night, about being a tenant, and about Liam and Sophie. My eyes welled up. It was a genuine apology, one I had waited years to hear. "It's okay, Mark," I whispered, pulling him into a hug. He actually hugged me back. "No," he said, his voice a little muffled. "It wasn't okay. You always did so much for me. And I was just angry. And stupid." From that day on, things truly started to change. He became more integrated into the family, participating in discussions, even offering to help with chores without being asked. His relationship with Liam and Sophie improved dramatically. He started to act like their older brother, looking out for them, even defending them to their friends. It was a long, painful journey, but that moment, that honest apology, made every struggle worth it. It taught him the value of family, of respect, and of appreciating what you have. And it taught me that sometimes, tough love, when delivered with an underlying desire for connection, can truly heal. He still lives at home now. He's in college, but he still pays a symbolic rent and helps out. It's no longer about punishment, it's about responsibility and contribution to our shared home. So, that's my story. It was a harsh lesson, and it came from a place of deep hurt, but it ultimately led to healing and a stronger family bond. I don't regret what I did, because it forced Mark to confront his own behavior and the unfairness of his accusations. It taught him a valuable life lesson, and it saved our family. Like this video if you were on my side in this whole mess. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.